Most people were taught that empathy is a virtue you give endlessly, feel more, care deeper, hold more. And if you feel exhausted, conflicted, or quietly resentful, you assume something is wrong with you. But what if the fatigue isn't a failure of empathy at all? What if it's a misunderstanding of how empathy actually works? Because empathy, when left unstructured, doesn't just connect, it absorbs. And absorption, over time, becomes depletion. There is a subtle moment most people miss, the moment when understanding another person quietly turns into carrying them, when compassion slips into responsibility, when awareness turns into entanglement. That is where exhaustion begins. Not because you care too much, but because you never learned where you end. Conventional empathy teaches emotional openness without discernment. It rewards sensitivity, but ignores regulation. It praises availability, but forgets containment. So you listen longer than your body wants. You feel moods that aren't yours. You carry emotional weather that didn't originate inside you, and then you call it kindness. But the nervous system doesn't recognize moral intent, it only recognizes load. Psychologically, empathy activates mirror systems in the brain. You don't just understand what someone feels, your body simulates it. Your breathing adjusts, your muscles tense, your emotional tone shifts. This is useful for connection, but dangerous without boundaries. Because without regulation, the brain cannot distinguish between resonance and responsibility. It doesn't know when to stop mirroring, so it keeps the emotional channel open, long after the interaction has ended. That's why some conversations linger in your chest. Why certain people drain you without saying anything wrong. Why you feel tired after being supportive. You didn't just listen, you absorbed. Energetic boundaries are not mystical walls. They are psychological filters. They are the ability to remain present without becoming porous, to witness emotion without letting it overwrite your internal state, to stay connected without losing orientation to yourself. This isn't emotional coldness. It's emotional literacy. A regulated system doesn't shut down empathy, it contains it. Think of the difference between a river and a sponge. A sponge absorbs everything until it's saturated and heavy. A river allows water to pass through without holding it. Healthy empathy flows. Unbounded empathy soaks. Most people were never taught how to let emotion pass through without storing it. So they confuse empathy with endurance. They believe being good means being available. That being loving means being permeable. But permeability without choice is not compassion, it's self-erasure. Psychologically, boundaries begin with self-awareness. Noticing when your internal state shifts in response to someone else. Recognizing the moment when your body tightens, your breath shortens, your mind becomes foggy. That sensation is information. It's your system signaling that the emotional load has exceeded what it can process safely. Ignoring that signal doesn't make you kind. It makes you dysregulated. Energetic protection is not pushing people away. It's knowing when to close the channel without closing your heart. This is where discernment matters. Discernment asks quiet questions in real time. Is this emotion mine or am I mirroring it? Am I responding from clarity or from obligation? Am I present or am I disappearing? When you don't ask these questions, empathy becomes automatic. And anything automatic eventually becomes draining. True connection requires sovereignty. Two grounded systems meeting, not one dissolving into the other. This is why some people can sit with intense emotions and feel steady, while others feel depleted after a brief interaction. It's not sensitivity, it's regulation. A regulated empath does not absorb everything. They choose what to engage with. They allow resonance without identification. They care without carrying. This distinction changes everything. Because once you stop absorbing, something unexpected happens. Your empathy deepens. When you're no longer overwhelmed, you can listen more clearly. When you're not busy managing internal chaos, you can respond with presence. When you're not drained, your compassion becomes sustainable. This is the paradox most people miss. Boundaries don't reduce connection, they preserve it. Without boundaries, empathy becomes performative. You give until you resent. You listen until you numb. You help until you withdraw. With boundaries, empathy becomes intentional. You show up whole, you leave intact, and you can return without exhaustion. Energetic protection also involves recognizing emotional responsibility. Not every feeling you sense requires your intervention. Not every pain you understand needs your solution. Understanding does not equal obligation. This is especially difficult for people who learned early that being attuned was a survival skill. Those who grew up managing emotional environments, reading moods, anticipating reactions, stabilizing others to feel safe. For them, empathy became identity, and boundaries feel like betrayal. But adulthood requires a redefinition. You are allowed to feel without fixing, to witness without absorbing, to care without carrying the weight of resolution. Your nervous system is not a community dumping ground. It is a living organism with limits. Energetic boundaries are built through small, consistent practices, pausing before responding, grounding your breath in your body while listening, noticing when you start to merge emotionally, and gently returning attention to yourself. This isn't withdrawal, it's anchoring. When you anchor in yourself, emotions lose their stickiness. They move through instead of settling inside. And over time, your relationships change. You stop attracting people who need you to disappear for them to feel held. You stop staying in conversations that cost more than they give. You begin to experience connection that feels mutual rather than extractive. Because healthy people don't need you to absorb them. They need you to meet them. Empathy without boundaries collapses into martyrdom. Boundaries without empathy collapse into isolation. But together, they form something rare. A presence that is warm, steady, and self-contained. This is sustainable connection. Not fusion, not distance, but resonance with autonomy. When you stop leaking energy, you don't become less loving. You become more precise with your love. You learn where to give, where to listen, where to step back, and where your presence is genuinely nourishing for both sides. And perhaps the deepest shift is this: you no longer confuse emotional intensity with intimacy. You recognize that closeness doesn't require exhaustion, that care doesn't have to cost your center. Because real empathy doesn't ask you to disappear. It asks you to arrive fully as yourself. So here is the quiet question to sit with. When you feel drained after connection, is it because you cared too much, or because you never learned where caring ends and carrying begins?